Anakin was in the Chancellor's office, the tension in the air almost suffocating as the two men faced each other. "I know there are things about the Force they don't tell me," Palpatine began, his voice smooth but loaded with insinuation. Anakin remained silent, observing the man who had been his mentor and confidant for years. "They don't trust you," the Chancellor continued, slowly circling around the ornate table that dominated the center of the office. "They see your future, know that your power will be too strong to control." The words were carefully chosen, each one a seed of doubt planted in the young Jedi's mind. Anakin felt discomfort grow in his chest, but something in Palpatine's words resonated with his own frustrations. The Council really didn't trust him completely, that was undeniable. "You must break through the fog of the Jedi's lies," Palpatine said, stopping before the large windows that revealed Coruscant stretching infinitely beneath the night sky. "Let me help you know the subtleties of the Force," the Chancellor offered, turning to face Anakin directly. The young Jedi finally spoke, his voice laden with growing suspicion. "How do you know the ways of the Force?" Palpatine smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "My mentor taught me everything about the Force, even the nature of the dark side." The admission hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Anakin felt his heart accelerate, his hand moving instinctively toward the saber at his belt. "You know the dark side, Anakin?" Palpatine continued, ignoring or perhaps enjoying the Jedi's reaction. "If one wishes to understand the great mystery, one must study all its aspects, not just the dogmatic and narrow view of the Jedi." His words flowed like poisoned honey, seductive and dangerous in equal measure. Anakin stepped back, processing what he was hearing, slowly understanding what Palpatine was revealing. "If you wish to become a complete leader, you must embrace a broader view of the Force." Palpatine pressed, advancing now, sensing he had Anakin on the verge of yielding. "Be careful. Only through me can you achieve a power greater than any Jedi." Then came the blow that Palpatine knew would strike deepest, the weapon he had forged through Anakin's visions. "Learn to know the dark side of the Force, and you will be able to save your wife from certain death." Anakin felt as if he had been physically struck. "What did you say?" he managed to articulate, his voice trembling. "Use my knowledge, I beg you," Palpatine responded, extending a hand in an apparently benevolent gesture. The realization hit Anakin like a crushing wave, each piece of the puzzle fitting into a terrible and clear pattern. "You are the Sith Lord," he accused, his voice gaining strength with certainty. Palpatine didn't deny it. In fact, his smile only widened. "I know what has been disturbing you," he said, changing tactics now that his identity was revealed. "Listen to me. Don't continue being a pawn of the Jedi Council." He began to circle again, but this time there was predator in his movements. "Since I've known you, you have sought a life greater than that of an ordinary Jedi, a life of significance, of awareness." Anakin followed his movement with his eyes, his mind working furiously through the implications, through the choices before him. Palpatine stopped, assessing the young Jedi with new eyes, calculating. "Your focus makes you stronger," he admitted with a touch of genuine approval. But Anakin was already moving, decision made, line crossed. Anakin lunged at Palpatine with speed born of years of training and battles across the galaxy, his blue saber igniting in a blur of light and sound. Palpatine was surprised by the speed and determination of the attack, retreating and barely managing to deflect the first blow that would have pierced his heart. From within the sleeves of his robes slid a red saber that ignited with sinister sound, and the two faced each other in fierce duel. They fought through the office, sabers creating arcs of light as they clashed repeatedly, expensive furniture being destroyed, valuable artworks falling from the walls. Anakin attacked with all the fury of Form V, his strikes powerful and relentless, but Sidious defended himself with superior technique born of decades of mastering Sith combat. It quickly became clear to Anakin that he didn't have enough power to defeat Sidious, each attack being blocked or deflected with growing ease, each opening he created being closed before it could be exploited. Sidious forced Anakin to retreat with a series of lightning attacks, then abruptly broke the combat and retreated toward his desk. He pressed a hidden button, and side doors exploded open. Guards dressed in red marched in with disciplined formation, their energized spears humming as they surrounded Anakin. Anakin Skywalker attempted to assassinate the Chancellor, Sidious declared in a loud and authoritative voice, instantly transforming from combatant to victim. Take him prisoner. The spears pointed at Anakin from all directions, and he quickly assessed the situation. He could fight them, probably could defeat the guards even surrounded, but then he understood something crucial. Sidious had used his plan B, calling witnesses, creating a narrative where Anakin was the aggressor. But now Sidious had no escape. The truth about his identity as Sith Lord would be investigated, and the Jedi Council would defend him when the facts came to light. Anakin thought about fighting the guards, his hand gripping his saber, but then made a calculated decision. He deactivated his saber and lowered his weapon, allowing the guards to approach. They quickly disarmed him, taking his saber and placing restraints on his wrists. Anakin looked at Sidious as he was led away, and the Sith Lord returned the look with a cold smile that promised this game was only beginning. News of the attempted assassination of the Supreme Chancellor spread through Coruscant like fire in dry vegetation, reaching the Senate and the Jedi Temple almost simultaneously. Yoda was on Kashyyyk supervising the Wookiee defenses, and Obi-Wan Kenobi was pursuing General Grievous on Utapau, both too distant to intervene immediately. Windu received the news with shock and disbelief. Anakin Skywalker arrested for attempted assassination seemed impossible, but the source was official and incontestable. He immediately departed for the Senate detention facilities, his mind working through the possibilities, trying to understand what could have led his fellow Jedi to such drastic action. The streets of Coruscant seethed with speculation and fear, citizens discussing in hushed tones about the apparent betrayal of a war hero. Meanwhile, Palpatine convened an emergency session of the Senate, preparing for his next move. Windu arrived at the detention cell escorted by Senate guards who watched him with barely disguised distrust. The cell was austere, bare metal walls and a glowing energy field keeping the prisoner contained. Anakin was standing, looking through the field, his eyes showing determination instead of defeat. "Master Windu," he said as soon as he saw him, "I need to tell you what happened." The guard stepped back a few paces, granting relative privacy, and Windu activated a portable audio blocker. "Speak, young Skywalker," he instructed, keeping his voice neutral despite the urgency he felt. Anakin began to recount everything, the conversation about saving Padme, the revelation that Palpatine knew the dark side, the sudden realization that the Chancellor was actually Darth Sidious. "He is the Sith Lord we've been looking for," Anakin concluded. "The one who orchestrated this entire war from the beginning." Windu listened in growing silence, the pieces finally fitting into a terrible pattern. "Are you certain of this?" Windu asked, though he already knew the answer from the burning sincerity in Anakin's eyes. "Absolute," the young Jedi responded. He admitted to knowing the nature of the dark side, spoke of his mentor, offered me power through the dark side. Windu deactivated the blocker and turned to the guards. "I need to communicate with the Jedi Council immediately," he declared with authority. He used his communicator to transmit urgent messages, called all Jedi back to Coruscant, especially summoned all available masters, and sent a coded alert message that Palpatine was Darth Sidious and that he might make a massive retaliation and pursue the Jedi. The response came quickly from various systems, Jedi across the galaxy receiving the emergency call and beginning their journeys back to the capital. Windu knew he needed time for reinforcements to arrive, time to build a case against the most powerful man in the Republic. While Windu organized the Jedi defense, Palpatine presented his own version of events to the assembled Senate. "Citizens of the Republic," his voice echoed through the massive chamber. "Today we face an unthinkable betrayal." He paused for dramatic effect, allowing the silence to build tension. The Jedi, those who swore to protect the Republic, attempted to assassinate their democratically elected leader. Murmurs of shock ran through the ranks of senators. Anakin Skywalker, one of their so-called heroes, invaded my office with saber ignited, determined to execute me without trial, without formal accusation, without process. His performance was masterful, each word calibrated to inflame emotions. And why? Because the Jedi can no longer accept civilian oversight because they seek to seize power for themselves. Senators began to shout, some in support of Palpatine, others defending the Jedi, the chamber descending into chaos. Bail Organa tried to speak in defense of the Order, but his voice was drowned in the cacophony. Palpatine raised his hands, calling for silence. Therefore, with great sadness and sense of duty, I declare the Jedi Order enemies of the Republic. The announcement fell like a bomb. Even the Jedi defenders momentarily struck dumb with shock. They attempted to seize power through assassin's coup, and we cannot allow this threat to continue. Senate guards received orders, Jedi in government facilities should be detained, the Jedi Temple should be surrounded. Windu, who had gone to the hearing to try to defend the Order and present the truth, immediately perceived the danger. He was on the Senate floor when guards began to converge in his direction, their weapons drawn. Master Jedi, the guard commander called, you are under arrest for conspiracy against the Republic. Windu looked around, quickly calculating his options. There were too many civilians, too many possibilities for innocent casualties if he fought there. But when the first guards approached to detain him, Windu moved with the characteristic speed of a Jedi Master. His purple saber ignited and he deflected the blaster shots that came in his direction, redirecting them away from the senators. He disarmed 3 guards with economical movements, knocked out 2 others with precise force pushes, and created a path through the encircling ranks. Senators screamed and ducked seeking cover as Windu leaped from the floating platforms, using the force to propel himself toward the upper exits. Blaster fire followed him, but his saber danced in defensive patterns, blocking each shot. With a last powerful leap, he reached an external landing platform where a Jedi speeder was parked. Guards still fired from within the Senate chamber, but Windu was already in the speeder, accelerating toward the Jedi Temple. As he flew over Coruscant, he could see other security speeders beginning to pursue him, and farther away, military transports moving in formation. The war that Sidious had planned for so long had finally begun, but this time the Jedi knew who their true enemy was. Padme Amidala moved through the corridors of the detention facility with determination that defied any guard to question her. Her position as Senator of Naboo still carried weight, and she used every ounce of that authority to reach the cell where Anakin was being held. Her heart ached seeing him through the energy field, her secret husband now imprisoned as a criminal, accused of crimes she knew he hadn't committed with malicious intent. Anakin? She called softly, and he turned immediately, relief flooding his face at seeing her. The guards allowed them a few minutes of privacy, retreating to a respectful distance while maintaining vigilance. Anakin approached the energy field, his hands rising as if he could touch her through the barrier. Padme, you shouldn't be here, he said, concern evident in his voice. It's too dangerous. She shook her head, refusing to be driven away. Tell me what happened, she asked. Tell me everything. Anakin told her everything, every detail of the conversation with Palpatine, the revelation about him being Darth Sidious, the brief but violent confrontation, and his decision to surrender to the guards. Padme listened with growing horror, understanding the extent of the manipulation that Palpatine had woven around them for years. He used my visions about you, Anakin said, his voice breaking slightly. Used my fear of losing you as a weapon against me. Padme felt tears sting her eyes, but repressed them, knowing she needed to be strong now. We will overcome this, she promised. The truth will prevail. But Anakin shook his head, urgency taking hold of his expression. No, Padme, you need to listen carefully, he said, moving closer to the field. You need to flee immediately. She began to protest, but he continued, speaking rapidly. Sidious won't allow witnesses, won't risk the truth being exposed. You are in danger. Ask Bail Organa for help, Anakin instructed. He is one of the few senators we can still trust completely. Padme nodded, her mind already working through the logistics. Hide in Alderaan, he continued. Take C-3PO and R2-D2 with you. Keep yourself safe until this ends. His hands pressed against the energy field, wishing he could hold hers. And the baby? She asked, her hand moving instinctively to her abdomen where her twins were growing, still unknown to everyone except herself. Especially because of the baby, Anakin responded with fierce intensity. "You need to survive, Padme. No matter what happens to me, you and our child need to be safe." Padme swallowed the tears, knowing he was right, hating that he was right. "I will," she finally promised. "But you need to promise you'll survive too, that we'll meet again." Anakin forced a smile. "I promise," he said, though both knew it was a promise he might not be able to keep. Padme departed from the detention facility with a heavy heart, but focused mind. She contacted Bail Organa through secure channels, and the senator from Alderaan immediately offered his assistance. Within hours, Padme was on a diplomatic vessel departing from Coruscant, C-3PO and R2-D2 accompanying her as Anakin had instructed. As Coruscant diminished behind her, she looked back one last time, whispering a silent prayer for Anakin and all the Jedi who faced Sidious's wrath. In that same moment, Mace Windu arrived at the Jedi Temple, his speeder landing on the main platform with dangerous speed. He ran out, his eyes immediately catching something terrible on the horizon. The 501st Legion of clones approaching in battle formation, their transports and walkers forming a threatening line. But this time, they didn't have Anakin Skywalker in command. Only cold orders from a chancellor who had revealed his true face. Windu ran to the council hall where Jedi were already gathering, those who had been on Coruscant and the first who had responded to his emergency call. "The 501st is coming," he announced without preamble. Sidious ordered an attack on the temple. Masters and knights exchanged somber looks, but none showed fear. "Protect the temple," Windu ordered, his voice resonating with authority. "All Jedi have been summoned to Coruscant. Reinforcements are arriving. We have to hold out." Sabers were checked, defensive positions established, young Padawans evacuated to the lower levels. The Jedi Order, which had served as guardians of peace for 1,000 generations, prepared to defend their sacred home against those they once called allies. The battle began when the first clones crossed the outer perimeter, their cannons opening fire against the ancient walls of the temple. Jedi emerged from the entrances, their sabers ignited in dozens of colors, facing the advancing clone troops. The clones advanced with military efficiency, their formations precise and fire coordinated. But with each minute more Jedi arrived to reinforce the defense. Ships from nearby systems landed on the upper platforms, disgorging knights and masters who immediately joined the battle. Lightsabers deflected blaster fire, Jedi used the Force to topple walkers, and slowly, the tide began to balance. Shortly after, even the Masters began to arrive, Jedi of great power and experience who had abandoned their missions upon receiving Windu's emergency call. While the battle raged outside the temple, Anakin was distressed in his cell, feeling the strong disturbance in the Force that the violence created. He sat with his head in his hands, feeling guilty for having triggered all this, for not having gone directly to the council, for having allowed his pride to lead him to confront Sidious alone. It was then that he saw the cell door open, the energy field deactivating with a hum. Anakin rose quickly, assuming defensive posture. He thought it might be Palpatine coming to execute him personally, and prepared for the confrontation even without a saber, determined to sell his life dearly if necessary. Then he saw something flying through the air in his direction, his lightsaber, followed by a familiar and welcome voice. "Hello there!" It was Obi-Wan Kenobi, his master, who had just returned from Utapau, his face showing relief at finding Anakin alive. He was accompanied by Yoda, the diminutive but immensely powerful Grand Master, and on the floor behind them lay unconscious guards. Anakin caught his saber in the air, feeling complete again with the weapon in his hand. "We have to defend the temple," he said immediately, moving toward the exit. But Yoda raised his small hand, stopping him. "Many Jedi there already are," the Grand Master said, his ancient eyes gleaming with determination. "Our work, another will be." Yoda looked at Anakin and Obi-Wan, his staff touching the floor with definitive sound as he explained what had to be done. "Find and defeat Sidious, we must," he declared, his small voice but laden with the authority of 9 centuries. End the Sith threat once and for all. Our mission is. Anakin felt renewed determination flow through him. This was the chance to correct his mistake, to finish what he had begun in that office. Obi-Wan nodded in agreement, his hand resting on the saber at his belt. The temple can defend itself, he said. But only the three of us can reach Sidious before he escapes from Coruscant. At the temple, the confrontation continued with growing intensity, but the Jedi were managing to resist the clone attack. More and more reinforcements arriving from systems across the galaxy. The 501st, so efficient under Anakin's command, now faced the collective fury of the Jedi Order and discovered that without their usual general, they were no match for so many guardians of peace working in perfect coordination. The three Jedi moved through Coruscant using discrete routes, avoiding clone patrols and taking advantage of the chaos that the battle at the temple created as a distraction. Yoda guided them through the Force, sensing Sidious's dark presence like a wound in the luminous web of life. They managed to infiltrate Palpatine's private quarters, silently eliminating any guard or security that crossed their path. Obi-Wan and Anakin working in perfect synchronization, while Yoda maintained vigilance through the Force. The opulent corridors of the Chancellor's quarters were luxurious, decorated with art from 1,000 worlds. But the Jedi paid no attention to the riches around them, focused only on their mission. Finally, they arrived at the inner chambers, and there, surrounded by his red-clad guards, stood Palpatine, or rather, Darth Sidious in his true form, his eyes already yellowed by dark-side corruption. "Ah, visitors," Sidious said with a cruel smile. Young Skywalker brought friends this time. His guards moved forward, energized spears humming to life. "I was expecting you." Anakin and Obi-Wan ignited their sabers simultaneously, blue and blue glowing side by side. "It's over, Sidious," Obi-Wan declared calmly. "You've lost." The Sith Lord laughed, a sound that echoed with malice. "Lost? I turned the entire galaxy against you, Jedi." Yoda stepped forward, his small green saber igniting. "If so powerful you are," the Grand Master said, "why flee you try?" His eyes caught Sidious's subtle movement toward a hidden exit. Sidious stopped, realizing he had been detected. "Very well, Yoda," he admitted. "Then let's settle this the old way." He gestured to his guards, who advanced against the Jedi while Sidious prepared to face Yoda. Anakin and Obi-Wan went at the guards with coordination born of years fighting side by side. The first guard attacked Anakin with his spear, but the young Jedi deflected and counterattacked, his saber cutting through the red armor. Obi-Wan faced two guards simultaneously, his defensive form 3 allowing him to block both while seeking openings. "Just like old times, Master," Anakin shouted, blocking another spear attack. "Try not to lose your saber this time," Obi-Wan responded with dry humor. Even in the midst of battle, they moved through the chamber, systematically reducing the number of guards while, behind them, Yoda and Sidious faced each other. The Jedi Grand Master leaped and spun, his small size making him a difficult target, while Sidious attacked with surprising speed, his red saber seeking the ancient Jedi. The battle between light and darkness, between order and chaos, unfolded in all its fury. When Anakin and Obi-Wan finished with the last guard, they turned to help Yoda, but the Grand Master didn't need assistance. He was keeping Sidious occupied, blocking each attack, forcing the Sith Lord to concentrate completely on him. It was the opening Anakin needed. He positioned himself, calculating angle and distance, waiting for the perfect moment. Sidious attacked Yoda with a powerful descending blow, and Yoda blocked, his small muscles tensing with effort. It was then that Anakin leaped, his body propelled by the Force in an impossible arc, descending with his saber aimed at Sidious. The Sith Lord sensed the attack coming and spun incredibly fast, his saber rising to defend against Anakin's strike. But in doing so, his back was exposed to Yoda, and the Grand Master didn't waste the opportunity. Yoda extended his small hands, channeling pure force through himself, and lightning bolts of energy exploded from his fingertips, striking Sidious in the back at a distance. Sidious's eyes widened in shock and pain as the energy coursed through his body, his control over his saber faltering for just a fraction of a second. But a fraction of a second was all Anakin needed. His saber descended with final precision, the strike passing through Sidious's neck. The Sith Lord's head separated from his body and fell, and with it, decades of Sith planning, manipulation, and dreams of a dark empire ended. The body collapsed, and silence fell over the chamber. Anakin deactivated his saber, his breathing heavy, barely believing they had actually won. Yoda approached the fallen body. Defeated, the dark side has been, he said calmly, rebalanced to the Force, brought you have, young Skywalker. Obi-Wan placed a hand on Anakin's shoulder. You did the right thing from the beginning, he said with pride. You resisted the temptations and exposed the true enemy. When the three Jedi arrived back at the temple, the battle was ending. The Jedi had eliminated the last attacking clone. Though the cost had been high, many knights and even some masters had fallen defending their home. But the Order had survived, thanks to the Chosen One discovering and facing the Sith Lord before Sidious could complete his plans. Windu met them at the entrance, his face showing relief at seeing them alive. Is it done? He asked. Yoda nodded. Ended, Darth Sidious is. Restored, the rebalance of the Force has been. In the weeks that followed, the truth about Palpatine emerged gradually. Secret files were discovered, testimonies were given, and the galaxy finally understood the extent of the Sith manipulation. The war ended when the true force behind the Separatist Confederation was revealed, and peace negotiations began. Padme returned from Alderaan, reuniting with Anakin in an embrace that both feared they would never give again. She survived, and days later would give birth to healthy twins, Luke and Leia, in a galaxy that was finally beginning to heal. Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, had fulfilled the prophecy, not destroying the Sith through brute power, but through correct choices in the moments that mattered most, proving that even in the darkest times, light could prevail if someone had enough courage to defend it.